Welcome to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast with your host, legendary powerlifter and strength athlete, Chad Ikes. For most, the journey of strength starts in the gym, but should inevitably expand through all aspects of life. Join us as we discuss all things strength. Now, here's your host, Chad Ikes.
Hey everybody, I'm back again with another episode that I'm just going to wing it and talk about the subject today, which is going to be kind of a combination: overtraining, under-recovering, working hard. It's one of those things for me that was really pivotal in me becoming as successful as I was in powerlifting. It was probably the hardest thing for me to understand and change and improve on. And I think it's one of the biggest things that I see holding lifters back today. One of the biggest problems I see is, and I'm guilty of this, is trying to, who's your audience? Who are you talking to? You know, most new lifters don't need to even worry about overtraining. They don't need to hear anything about overtraining. They need to work hard and they need to start grinding away, beating it up all the time, and learning about their body. And that would go back to my last episode where I'm talking about the window for errors closing as you get better. When you're new, especially if you're young, man, you can do so much without ever overtraining. And probably what you need to do is be just busting your hump, training, 4 or 5 days a week at least. And you need to be training hard, you need to be training heavy, you need to be pushing your body, because that's how you're going to grow. That's how you're going to recruit deeper muscle fibers. That's how you're going to learn to push your body. That's how you're going to learn to deal with the pain of like being a really heavy lifter, and kind of learn where you're going to have to push yourself the better and better you get. But then there's this section of lifters in the middle, or guys that are coming up, that are in the same boat I was in. And the reason they're not breaking through to the other level is because they're not putting enough focus on their recovery. And this is where I think hard work is always going to be in the picture. But what is hard work? What do you define hard work as? And I can't say that I have a definition for hard work, but I do have a story. My whole family's blue collar, and I was doing stuff helping my dad when I was a kid. And then me and my brother, when I was in like fifth grade, we had a lawn care service and we started working for this carpenter, the contractor. And I remember even there was one night that my brother was sick, so I went with him and I spent all day, and we got home like at dark. And at that point I was just cleaning up and doing this and that. But I mean, I grew up around the industry. So when I went to college that first summer, I did construction. And I remember just thinking, man, look at all these old dudes, man. These old dudes are not going to show me up, man. I'm going to be the hardest working son of a bitch at this site, man. And I'm like, I actually was working with my brother, and they put us together, not all the time, but a lot of the time I was with my brother, and we worked well together. And, he was like, hey, here's my layout list. I'm going to start laying out. You bring all this lumber up here. And, I'm carrying as much lumber as I can, and I'm running. And I remember one of the guys was talking to my brother, and he's like, dude, your brother knows that compressor has wheels, right? Like, I just picked the thing up and run across the job site with it. And, there was no way these old guys were going to outwork me. I was going to outwork them no matter what. And then after a week or two of that, I'd stop at the end of the week and I'm like, huh, Those guys actually like didn't run around like I did, but I think they got more work done than me. So, kind of what does that make me? And is being the hardest worker really that big a deal when the other guy gets more work done than I do? And then later on, when I got into powerlifting, and especially when I got called out on it by very talented, great lifters, uh, number one being Dave Tate. Do you want to be the hardest worker or do you want to be the best you can be and possibly be a great power lifter? I went back and remembered that hard work's important. I'm all about hard work. But what really is hard work? And I bring up guys, I've known some guys that have pretty good genetics and have really good potential, and they kind of get to this certain level. And it's like, man, they're in the gym 5 days a week. They're training hard all those days. They eat pretty good during the week. They get their sleep. And then every weekend they go off the rails. Every weekend they're out partying. They're out late partying, so they don't get much sleep. They eat like crap. They're drinking a shit ton of alcohol. And they just get to a point and they never get better. But goddamn, they're in the gym 5 days a week, man. They're not missing their training sessions and they're working so hard and they like to brag how hard they work, but where did they get? Where are they at? If you we have this tendency, and I had this tendency, hard work was what was happening in the gym. Well, I learned that no, hard work is eating the food that you need to eat and not eating the crap. Hard work is going, yeah, I need to be in bed by this time because I got to get up at this time for work or to train and I need this much sleep. Hard work is going, hey, I can't hit my proper technique because I'm like a 2x4. So I need to fit these stretching in so many times during the week. That's the stuff that's hard work. The meal prep, the going, hey man, I really want to go into the gym and train because this happened today and I just want to go kill some weight. But I need to let my body recover because I'm not ready to go in and do that yet. That's hard work. Going into the gym and just following this schedule because you don't even know it's just a schedule. It's just what somebody else was doing. So you're going to do it, not taking any consideration to what the guy who wrote it wants you to be doing the rest of the time. You're just going to go in a gym and you're going to do this. You're working hard part of the time. And you're doing, in my mind, you're doing the stuff that's easy. Going into the gym and training hard is easy. I've done that my whole life. I loved it. It was hard not allowing myself to do that. So what hard work to me involves, or I should say, there's hard work, there's hard working, and there's intelligent hard working. I want to be an intelligent hard worker. Working hard when it doesn't give you the best results is not to me the best thing. If that's what you want to do, that's cool, man. I got no problems at all with it. I did it for years and years and years, and it helped me to deal with a lot of the problems I didn't want to deal with in myself. And it kept me out of a lot of trouble because those problems would have creeped up and I would have gotten in other trouble. So I get it. I understand it. It's awesome. Who knows? Maybe someday I'm going to go back to like, dude, I don't even care. I just want to train every day. But not right now. And I definitely, that would have got me to a mediocre power lifter. And that's where I would have stayed. Because when I got to the point, I was totaling, I don't know, 1900 pounds when all this stuff kind of came up and it was like, hey, if you want to be really good, this isn't going to cut it. Like you can't just keep going in the gym and killing yourself 5 and 6 days a week. That's not how it works. And even actually at that time, I was probably only doing, I was doing 4 heavy sessions and then a couple GPP sessions. So however you want to count that, six, um, 4 or 6, whatever. And then I started talking about overtraining at this time because it was like, listen, my body's just not keeping up. Like, so if I keep training heavy and my body's not recovering, then what is the point of this? My body needs to recover and grow. That's how it gets stronger. And I started talking a lot about that. And I got a lot of shit about that, but it was funny because I would get shit from guys that were like okay or mid level guys, but a lot of the really top guys, they were the ones that I was talking to, and they were the ones that led me down that path. So again, it was like, well, who do you want to listen to? Who do you really, whose opinion matters to you? Does any random guy's opinion matter to you, or do the top lifters matter to you? And that can be tough to do when you're surrounded by a lot of people that are where you're at or under where you're at. Like if you're, and I think this is one of the reasons like top gyms do so well, is they're around people that rise. Oh, that's not right. A lot of people that will lift them up. Where even when I started, I was in a gym and nobody was doing what I was doing. So it took me a little while to catch on that, hey, wait a minute, I have access to these top guys now, and they're telling me this. Everybody locally and around here is telling me this. Who should I be listening to? I should be listening to these top guys, not these local guys, because they're local. They're not where I want to go. I want to go where these top guys are. And that was tough. Um, when everybody keeps breaking you down, not breaking you down, but everybody's like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Well, that don't make sense. We always did this. And I'm like, yeah, but you guys always did this, and how come there's no world champions here? Well, there actually was one, but she was kind of doing her own stuff at that time. But um, yeah, it gets tough. So I start talking about overtraining, and I got a lot of people that understood it, a lot of people that listened to it that got great results. I helped a lot of different people out, got a lot of good responses from a lot of really top guys, and then I kind of like went, wait a minute, is it really that I'm overtraining or is it that I'm under recovering? And with me, my story's a little bit different too, which I think people would listen to what I was saying, but then they would see what I was doing, and they would think I was preaching what I was doing was what I wanted them to do. And it was like, no, and this is where it's sometimes it's difficult when you're just putting out information because you're trying to reach all these different people in all these different sects, and it's how do you say the things to make how do you make sure everything you want to say is taken in the best way possible? I have narcolepsy. There is no cure for it yet. I've stumbled and baffled many doctors at this point, and there's nothing they can do yet. I'm still looking, I'm still researching from time to time and looking for the new information and if they've figured anything out yet. But there is nothing. So my sleep is going to be a train wreck. I'm going to get almost no deep sleep no matter what I do. So my recovery is going to be limited. I don't think somebody that sleeps should be training like me. They would probably be under training if they trained like me. But my main goal was like, hey, just think about it. Think about who you are. And I know for a fact that people of different genetics recover different. Some people just recover awesome. Some people don't recover as well. If you throw drugs into the mixture, there's a lot of people that go, oh, I'm going to train 4 days a week, and they're totally overtrained. And then they go on drugs and they start getting strong. I think there's something to the drugs making them stronger, but I think there's also a lot to the drugs making them recover faster. So now they're not so overtrained, and so they're getting stronger. And I even Dorian Yates talked a little bit about this in an interview where he said, the guys that were training 5 and 6 days a week went on drugs so they could keep training 5 or 6 days a week, because it helped them recover better, so they could do that and still make gains. He goes, I thought, well, why not just do what's best for me and then go on the drugs and have that added benefit without even training more, which makes sense to me. But so then I prefer to say under recovered now, because a lot of people, you shouldn't really say, oh, I'm overtrained. You should say, oh, am I under recovered? Because a lot of times when I talk to people, I mean, unless they're training like 6 or 7 days a week hard, or I should say heavy, or like with a lot of dynamic effort, they could probably recover. But it depends on their age, it depends on their genetics, it depends on their work. There's so many different factors that, so when people throw out a program, here's a program, why aren't they explaining kind of how, at least a little bit of information of like, hey, now you need to manipulate this to work for you. So I also made this mistake at one point, especially I closed my granite business, but I had a granite business with one of my, well, he's pretty much a best friend of mine. And so we're doing granite every day. Well, I didn't want to sink it in my head that I'm lifting thousands of pounds every single day. And I'm bent over every single day. Like you're cutting a sinkhole, you're bent over because we didn't have a regular shop. We were doing a lot of stuff on site. So you're bent over a piece of stone and basically a straight leg deadlift for, 30, 40 an hour sometimes, cutting sinkholes. And then I would not, no, that's not training. That's not my training. My training is my training. Work is work. And the two are separate. And no, they're not. They're not separate. You're not going to go have a manual job and then think you're going to train equivalent to somebody who has an office job, especially if it's not a stressful office job. And again, varying to people's, maybe a guy who recovers poorly but is an office job might be able to keep up with a guy in a physical job who has great recovery. So it's all going to be different all the time, but you have to take in all these other factors. And then, but I think my first thing is like, now when I'm talking to people and they're like, well, I train like this. And it's like, okay, well here, let's talk. And I start asking them, what are the signs of overtraining, the signs of your body not keeping up with it, and how are you doing this? What's up with this? And then it's like, hey, so, I mean, here's the first thing. I think you're overtrained. And normally, again, this is not going to be a new lifter. Most new lifters, it's probably going to be an opposite story. It's going to be like, no, you think you're overtrained, dude. You're not even close. Like your max squat is 300 pounds and you weigh 270. It's not too much for you. But if I am with an accomplished lifter, or say he's an older guy and he trains really, really hard, and he's still like a 600 pound, squatter, and he's like 220 pounds, you're like, yeah, okay, you're still doing pretty good. And everything you're telling me is that you're overtrained. But I won't even say before, because sometimes I'll just cut him back. I'll cut him back, have him take a week off first, then cut him back on some training sessions, and then go, all right, let's see how you do here. Then now let's look at your recovery. But I could go, hey, let's take a week off, then let's look at your recovery over that week, or about what you're doing for your recovery, and then go, hey, no, you could probably keep up with this amount of training, but you're under recovered. You're not eating enough to support the training that you want. You're not getting enough sleep to support the training that you want. Or hey, your sleep sucks and you have apnea and you need to get on a CPAP. Once you get on a CPAP, you ain't going to be overtrained doing what you're doing. Once you kick your calories up, you'll be fine. Are you doing GPP and stretching, or are you going partying every weekend and drinking a bunch of alcohol? So you got to kind of look at all those factors. And I find with a lot of people, it's more under recovering than overtraining. They could keep up with the training they're doing. They're just not focusing on their recovery. They're a lot of times they're not eating enough or they're not sleeping enough. Like, yeah, I went to bed at noon. I had to get up at 5 to go to work. Or I went to bed at noon. I went to bed at midnight, got up at 5 to go to work. Dude, 5 hours ain't gonna cut it if you want to be strong. Sure, there's some guys that can probably get away with it, but even then I would go, I'll bet if you got 8, you'd be stronger. Now I don't know that because everybody's different, but so I think we need to look at how we define hard work. And are we worried about working hard? Or are we worried about working hard and intelligent and efficient? What is our goal? Is our goal, and this was an interesting one too, and because I get a lot of shit for talking about overtraining, and I get a lot of shit for not training as much as everyone else, which is fine. I don't care. It's cool. Everybody gets to think what they want to think. It's not worth my piece to deal with it. Um, and I go, well, that's cool. I mean, if your goal is to be the hardest worker and to you working hard is just in the gym, that's cool. That's great. I mean, cool. If you want to feel beat up and you want to wear your joints out and you want to be like really old when you're not that old, like whatever, I don't care. I respect the hard work. I mean, you're still working hard and I still respect that. That's cool. I wanted to be the best power lifter that I could be. I wanted to push my body as far as I could, not before getting before really deciding to be a power lifter. And I mean like a champion power lifter. I did. I trained every day. I loved that. I love that 5 and 6 day a week challenge of how hard can I push myself? How far can I go? And I love that euphoric feeling afterwards. So for me back then, it was about really that feeling and training as hard as I could and seeing how far I could push it. Then later, when I got called out on it, when I had top lifters talking to me about this, that's when I went, no, it's not about, I don't care how hard I work. I don't care how hard people think I work. I care about going to the competition and putting up good numbers. I care about going to the competition and seeing how much strength I can get out of my body. That was my goal. So that meant everything had to change. And I had to look, and that's when we started going way deeper into my sleep issues and stuff at that point. And we learned about that. And I had apnea at the time. And it took me down a good path in life too, because it forced me to recognize a lot of stuff that I wasn't paying enough attention to. But I was not able to, I was doing everything I could. I admit my nutrition could have been better, should have been better. I was getting everything I needed, but I was getting a whole lot more on top of that. Like I would eat enough healthy stuff, but then I would also eat a bunch of crap on top of that, just to keep pounding all the calories. And my heaviest was 397, and it takes a lot of calories, man, to maintain that kind of mass. And I just hated eating. So it kind of got to like, hey, I'm going to need this many calories. And the easiest way to do this is with getting a lot of food that's really small with a lot of calories. And that usually means crap food, junk food. So my nutrition could have been better, but I was always working as hard as I could to get more sleep, to get better quality sleep. I was taking, if we weren't training that weekend, I was limiting what I would do, which is kind of at the time is when I started picking up photography, because that was a hobby that I could go do without like risking me doing something stupid on a dirt bike or a quad. And although I still managed to combine quad and photography and do dumb stuff. But it allowed me to have a hobby and get away from the sport every now and then without really, taxing my body. Because I was always thinking about, hey, I need to recover from my next session. I need to get my best recovery so I can grow stronger. So I was doing everything I could, and then it was like, okay, I'm trying to do everything I can to recover better. So this is where my training is going to be. This is where it has to be. Even though I want to do more, it can't be more. And that's a hard thing to open up to when you've grew up with the idea that more is better. Oh, you're not getting strong enough, bench more. I mean, how many times? And I know lots of kids that have done this, young kids, and I've done it too. Oh man, my bench isn't going up, so I need to bench 3 times a week, or I need to bench 4 times a week. And honestly, when you're young, it might boost your bench a little bit, but in the long run, it's not going to do you any good at all. Uh, but we have that mentality of more is better. If I'm not making gains, I'm not working hard enough. And that's true. But how are you defining hard? And maybe you do need to work harder. I'm all about you need to go to the gym, and when you're in the gym, you need to focus. You need intent. You need to work hard. And what's interesting to me again is how are we defining hard? Like if you're going towards bodybuilders, I know some bodybuilders, some top level guys that don't really lift super heavy. But when they're in the gym, they're super controlled. They have great mind muscle connection. And it may not look like they have a lot of intensity or intent, but those guys are on it, man. You just don't see it. And I think to some respects, I've gotten that way where I can train really hard and people don't know it. Because I've just done it. I'm not yelling and screaming all the time. That's like it. I say that for competitions. And I used to save it for some of my max effort work, but sometimes you can't tell. It's like when somebody gets really good at something, you see a guy who's really good at welding and you're like, dude, he's not even trying. No, he's just really goddamn good at it. He is trying. He's been trying for years, and that's why he's so good. It looks easy, but he's got a ton of intent. He knows exactly what he's doing. So I think it's defining what is hard, and we need to define this in our own mind, and we need to see it so we can do this. And we need to look past some of the thoughts that we get in our head and go, wait a minute, where did that thought come from? Who told me that? Like under what pretext did I learn it at? Is that really the way it is in this situation? Like I have that blue collar, nobody's going to outwork me. Well, yeah, that's why I trained so hard in the gym, but really it was like no, because I need to work outside the gym just as hard as inside. Maybe the guy who beat me is actually working harder than me. Maybe he doesn't work as hard as me in the gym, but he's working harder than me outside the gym. And I think that's where, like, if you're, with social media and people criticizing and blah, blah, all that shit, it's important to know, like, what are we comparing here? If somebody thinks training hard is the pinnacle for them and they're criticizing me, okay, cool. Then maybe I don't train as hard in the gym as you do because you train 5 days a week. I train 2 main sessions and a couple lighter sessions. So sure, you work more hard hours a week in the gym than I do. Great. But for me, whoever went to the meet and put up the biggest number. And in my day, there's very few that put up bigger numbers than me. And that was my standard. It didn't matter how hard I worked. It mattered what I did. And for me, if you made it to that level, you are working hard, but you're also working smart and you're also working efficient. Because I don't know anybody that made it to the top that doesn't work hard. But again, my definition of hard might be different than someone else's. And the reason I like to get on here and talk about this stuff is I don't care how long you're in this game. I don't think you always have all the answers because I really still believe people are individuals. And although we may have a lot of things that are similar, we still have a lot of things that are different. And if you pick all these top lifters or top athletes or top bodybuilders and look at their training, you're going to find there's a whole lot of top guys that train completely different. But the one common thing you're going to find in there is there's a lot of commonalities in their mentalities. How positive they are, how they look at things, how they don't let things stop them. You hear a story about guys that like, yeah, I didn't make progress on my bench for 4 years. And they didn't quit, man. They just kept going. Or they're like, yeah, man, I couldn't put on size. I was struggling. I was trying this. Man, I was basically every show I went to, I was the same weight for 4 years. And then bam, all of a sudden it clicked and they figured it. And sometimes it's what it takes. It takes that time of building before it blows up. Usually because we figure something out at some point or things change and things line up. But so I think that my point was that I'm getting to the science and the bro science kind of deal. I think it's something in the middle. I think we need to look at the science and we need to look at the programs and we need to look at like the people in the past and the current best lifters. I learned a lot by going around and talking to a lot of lifters and hanging out with lifters. And I mean, every chance I had to listen to a top lifter, I was listening. I was asking questions. I was contemplating what they were saying. And just because like it's kind of like with my training and I recovery was so poor, I could only train so much. So I didn't have I would listen to what a top lifter would say, and I had these top lifters talking to me, and they would be talking about recovery. And it's like, well, he doesn't train, he trains more than I do, but he sleeps better. So he could train more because he probably recovers faster. But what he's saying is these things have to match up. So then it's up to me to take that good tidbit, that great piece of knowledge that he had, and go, okay, well, for me, then, if I hear what he's saying, I probably need to train a little less because I'm getting all these other things are happening to me. And there's a lot of times I would ask him, I'd be like, hey, well, what about this? If I have this issue, or if I'm doing this, then how does this work? And here's what I think. And if you go back to like, I use Dave Tate a lot, but if you go back to guys like Dave Tate, he's like, well, what do you think? And why don't you try it? Okay, yeah, I get it. You're right. But it's all about learning what you need for you. And the funny part is like so many of the top guys are like, they don't give two shits what everyone else does. And they're sure as shit not going all over the internet criticizing it. They're just like, yeah, dude, you're a top lifter. You figured out what you had to figure out. I figured out what I had to figure out. He figured out what he had to figure out. And we're all doing what we got to do to be here at the top level. And I think that needs to trickle down more and more because I want to see guys get better and I want to see them be healthier. And I can't tell you how many clients, I've just started training people like as a full-time job within the last couple years, I guess. But I've been doing it part-time forever, or well, forever, for a long goddamn time. Even when I had my team, I was in charge of all the training for those guys. But I can't tell you how many guys I've taken, and they're like, "Holy crap, man! Like I'm not beat up anymore. Like I don't feel like shit all the time. My joints don't hurt, and I'm lifting more weight than I've ever lifted." Like, yeah, because you were never giving your body a chance to recover. First of all, because you might have been under recovered, you weren't focusing enough on your recovery. Your brain was all about training and going into the gym and what program do I need. That's all. You were stuck in that loop. And when we opened up and you started going, hey, listen, that's important, but your sleep's more important. Your nutrition is more important. Your flexibility, your mobility. Like you got to do some cardio too, probably. Like once all that stuff starts coming into play and you start blending it all together, the magic starts happening. And you don't need to feel beat up and sore. And I remember one of the guys a long time ago, I'll never forget talking about this. And he was like, yeah, dude, he goes, I got to wear my briefs to mow my lawn, man. My hips are so beat up. And I was like, whoa, what? Because I was still coming up, and I'm like, dude, that sucks. Like I don't want to be like that. And it was just like so I spent a lot of time looking at this stuff and learning movement patterns and paying attention to my flexibility and my mobility. And I pulled in a lot of stuff that I learned working in physical therapy for so many years, um, because I wanted to do this. So then I love taking especially older guys or masters powerlifters and revamping their stuff. And I love when they go, man, I'm putting up PR lists, but you know what? I don't feel beat up all the time. I'm not exhausted all the time. Like I feel good. I feel better than I've ever felt, and I'm stronger than I've ever felt, and I'm lifting less than I ever have. And it's not about lifting less than you ever have. It's about finding that balance where you can train and recover and grow. Like, yeah, if you can, that's why I like to say under recovered. If you can optimize your recovery, that is going to allow you to train the most and balance all those things out to give you the fastest, most efficient gains. So, yes, if you don't want to work on your recovery and you can only train so much, your gains are going to be slower than if you would fix your recovery and you can train more. So, I mean, I'm all about let's do the most that we can. But if we overdo it and we're not seeing the gains, what's the point? What's the point of going to the gym every day if you're never giving your body a chance to recover and grow from what you're doing? And that was just my powerlifting way of thinking. I understand if that's what you do and that's what you enjoy, that's cool. Like, hey, if you go listen, dude, I just like going to the gym and killing myself. I go, cool, dude. I got all kinds of ideas, man. I can throw back a lot of the stuff that I did just to see how hard I could push myself every night. I mean, I got no problem helping somebody do that, but they have to understand that in doing that, you put training hard ahead of gains, which is fine. Like I said, everybody does their own thing. Some people don't like to compete. Some people don't care about. They're like, "Hey, I lift a lot and I lift all the time and I like that." Cool. That's awesome. You know, I don't have any problem with that. So, like my last podcast and this podcast, I'm really just trying to I'm trying to spur some thought. I'm trying to drop some ideas and some concepts that you'll think about and that'll kind of be percolate around in your head and it'll kind of be in there. So when you start seeing these things in training or you start seeing these things in a competition and you go, oh, hey, you know what? Chad said this one thing this one time about this. And maybe I don't see it exactly like he did, but there's something in there, because we're all different. One of the cool things I like training with my clients is you kind of start with them, and I'm always trying to drop information because I want them to learn. I want them to gain the skill, and it's fun over time as they start learning more and they start understanding what we're doing and they start asking questions and then they start coming up with like, well, hey, I kind of think maybe I need to do this. And I'll be like, okay, why? I love it when they come back with a good answer and I'm like, all right, let's try it, man. Like I can never know someone as well as they can know themselves. So I see myself as a guide I want to help them and spur them to explore themselves a little more and to start thinking about themselves and come up with the stuff that they need. And the more they understand, the more they think, the more they can communicate back with me how they feel, the better of a job I can do to help them. And it becomes like this, it's I don't know, it becomes, I mean, it's still a coach athlete kind of relationship, but I see it more like a guy on a journey and a guide. Because it's like, listen, I'm not going to say everything we need to do. And like when you have some experience and we start looking into meets, I'm going to help you. And we're going to sit down together and we're going to talk about openers and how you feel. And, you could be like, hey, I get really, really nervous in that first one. Can we drop that down a little bit? Or you could be the person like me where you're like, I need something to motivate me on that first one. I need a little bit of fear. I need a little bit of, oh crap, man, I got to get my shit together. Because that's what I do better with. And then we can talk and discuss all that stuff. And that's where it really becomes a lot more fun. Because you see it, you see in their brain, you see they're learning, you see they're exploring and trying, and that's a blast. So that's what these last couple of episodes are about. And I like to do these every now and then. Maybe I should do more of them like this. I don't know. But that's where we're at for now. I've had the heater off in here, so the sound is hopefully better, and it's starting to get hot, and it's late at night because it gets really hot in here during the day. I'm gonna try to post some stuff on Instagram about my trailer living, and I took a video of the place I was at before coming here because I just rented a room and basically the double part of the garage from a guy. And that was definitely down. I had a small house that I sold, but it was definitely downsizing to that, and then I downsized to this. But this has some huge benefits over the last place, minus having the gym. But anyway, so check out my Instagram. It's Chad Ikes, and please, if you learned some good stuff, or you heard some good stuff, share the podcast. We're going to keep trying to grow, keep trying to expand. But until next time, I am out of here.
Thanks for listening to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast. For more information, please visit couragebarbell.com. Until next time.